Afternoon and welcome everyone to live learning for 2025, our first live learning of the year. Super excited to kickstart the year with this really, I guess, a personal connection to this project for me, which I'd love to dig into a little bit later, to do with the Impact Driven Entrepreneurship Education for Children project that Future Anything's really, really fortunate to be part of. So I'd like to start with just a few little logistics for the day. So the session is being recorded. We know that lots of people will want to dig back into this, maybe over a drink, with the recording that we'll send out a little while after this. But we're so excited that we've got some people live with us today, and really excited for the chat that you're going to be hearing. My name's Dan. I am the Director of Professional Learning with Future Anything, and really love being with you today. So I'd like to acknowledge the lands that we're all gathering on here in Brisbane, where we're based, Meanjin, on the lands of the Yagara and Turrbal people. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I'd love to know where you're from. So wherever you're gathering from, we have an international audience with us today due to the nature of this project. So welcome to all of you who are around Australia and international. I'd love for you to jump into the chat and let us know where you are from, what part of the world are you joining us from, and what lands are you on. Live Learning is our professional development series for inquisitive, innovative, inspiring educators. Each month or so, our team chats with awesome movers, shakers, and thinkers. So ultimately, we love talking to cool people doing cool things. And that's really what today is about. Now, our guests for today, we have an apology. Ingrid is unfortunately quite unwell and not able to join us, but it's a super early start from the Netherlands for our guest, Dr. Maarten, who is a professor of entrepreneurship and really has a lot of knowledge around this project, but also social entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship in general to share with us. So I would really love to thank Maarten for being with us today. It is a pleasure and a privilege to work with him. We've known each other for a little while and met in person in Spain last year for this project. So Maarten, how are you today? It's, I'm told, 3 degrees and cloudy where you are.
Indeed. So thank you very much for inviting us over, Dan and colleagues at Future Anything. It is an honor to be in this series. Indeed, I'm at my home in the beautiful city of Amersfoort, not too far from Amsterdam. It's dark. It's just past 7 a.m. I have had coffee, which is important. It is cloudy and 3 degrees, but we will get up to like 7 or 8 today. So seeing you in your t-shirt makes me a little bit jealous, to be honest.
Oh, well, yeah, what can I say? It's actually a beautiful afternoon in Brisbane. So, you know, I'm thinking of you in that weather at the moment. But Maarten, I guess I'd love to start with, firstly, congratulations, now officially a professor of entrepreneurship. What kind of learner were you as a young person at school, Maarten?
Yeah, nice question. I have to say, I was a good student. So in terms of grades, I was doing quite well. I could also be quite a pain in the ass for some of my professors, I think, because I would really test them if I felt they were not into it or not taking me seriously. So yeah, so in some of my work as a student, I tested the professors in the sense of I would put a paragraph in about something completely different to test if they actually read what I was sending in. So yeah, a bit like that.
Awesome. Now, before we dig into talking a little bit more about, I guess, your specialty and the project, I'd love to just give the guests who are with us live the chance to think about questions. So if you've got a question as we're moving through, if you'd like us to dig a little bit deeper into something, please throw it into the chat. We will aim to have some question time at the end, but certainly I'll keep an eye on that and see where the questions might fit our conversation. So don't hesitate to ask us about anything that you're hearing. Maarten, I guess what I'd like to do is start with your work and your background and the importance of entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship for you, and get a little bit of the global perspective from the Netherlands. Can you dig into that for us?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so maybe a little bit, starting a little bit personally, I was trained as a geographer, so not an economist, as most professors in entrepreneurship, but I'm actually a professor of social entrepreneurship specifically. I've been working on the subject since 2015, which was also the period when around Europe, in the Netherlands, this subject became more and more relevant. I really started as a researcher on the topic, and soon discovered that there was in our own university not yet any education about social entrepreneurship. So, with some colleagues, started developing this as well, and then also started to notice social entrepreneurship education, or impact driven entrepreneurship education, as we now call it in this project, at different levels within primary schools, within secondary schools, within vocational education. Started to make connections there as well. Yeah, and the topic of social entrepreneurship, it is basically about finding solutions to societal challenges in an entrepreneurial way. And well, I think that at some point we should not need to call it social entrepreneurship anymore, because this is the type of entrepreneurship that is, has taken over the world basically. But for now, I think it is really important to study these pioneers in building the new economy, which is more just, more sustainable, and also, of course, help young people develop the skills to become a social entrepreneur themselves.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Maarten. And I guess we talk about social enterprise as being, the head of a
And now for
business, the
me.
heart of a charity. Just checking on whether we've lost.
Because we like to keep the there he is, he's back, everyone.
Ah,
Never fear.
apologies. So I was just saying thank you, Maarten. I was talking away while no one was listening to me. We talk about social enterprise, head of a business and heart of a charity. So, that's really cool to hear your perspective on that. I guess knowing that background in social entrepreneurship, I'd be keen for you to dig into, for the IDEEC project, Impact Driven Entrepreneurship Education for Children, which is really kind of your baby, something that you've put together. I'd love to know the origins of the project, how it came together. What was your goal for putting this project together?
Yeah, so it started in the city of Amsterdam, where I work at Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. And we have the city of Amsterdam, so the local government, which also since 2015 has been putting focus on the subject of social entrepreneurship, which is really nice. So we work together really well in a very productive way with them. And there is an education providing organization called Fawaka School of Entrepreneurship, that was already running a number of programs on social and sustainable entrepreneurship in primary education, upper primary education. So that is the age group between, say, 9 and 12 in the Netherlands. And they really wanted to know, okay, what is the impact of our programs? So we at the university help them to make a number of questionnaires, interviews, etc., to see what the impact of these programs really could be. And the results of that project were both very beneficial for bringing forward the topic of social entrepreneurship, but it also led to the question, okay, so we're doing this here, we're pioneering, but what is happening in different places around Europe and globally? And so both the city of Amsterdam, the people there, and me and my colleagues, we started reaching out to a number of organizations that we knew were working on this and trying to find new ones, and then had a number of conversations. And we found out we were really on the same page in, okay, we really need to learn from each other. We have this shared vision of, helping equip young people to face the grand challenges we are facing through entrepreneurship. And there's so many things happening in different places around the world. Let's bring that all together, learn from each other, and also develop some tools that anyone basically can use to build similar programs. Also trying to inspire policymakers to support these kinds of programs in the ways that are possible for them. So this is how we brought together a team. We have 9 organizations in the project from 5 countries, and we applied for funding at the European Union and got approved. So the project has been running since 2022. It is in its last year now. So we've done a lot of the work already. We'll talk about it later, I'm sure. But yeah, it is quite competitive, so it is a good sign that it was approved for funding. And what is really special is that our project involves 2 partner organizations from outside the European Union, which is very unusual for this type of project. So we have Social Enterprise Academy based in Scotland, and of course you, Dan, Nick, and the team from Future Anything from Australia. You are in fact the only Australian partner in any of these kinds of projects, which proves that you bring something special, because otherwise it would not have been approved.
Yeah, and Maarten, I'm just going to share, just for our audience here, a couple of slides that may help to understand the picture. So this is our global team from 5 countries, 9 organizations of different skill sets and bringing different things to the conversation, as Maarten said, through some policy and other support in that space, as well as working in schools and facilitating programs, entrepreneurship, etc. So that's the team that have been working together. Maarten, I guess what I'd love to do is dig next into some of the early stages of the project, some of the frameworks that were drawn from in order to develop what has now been a toolkit of activities, which we can talk about in a little while. But firstly, as I go to this screen here, there were really 3 main methodologies that were used in drawing together the competencies in this program, in this project. So can you talk to us a little bit about these main methodologies?
Yeah, and maybe before getting into the details of that, it's good to know we're an international project, and the educational traditions or the ways that people work are very different in different countries. So we have partners from Australia, Scotland, Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands, and the pedagogical traditions, for example, in these countries are all very different. So for some of you seeing or listening to this, some of this is probably quite familiar, but for some of the in some other contexts, it might be quite new. For example, Project-based learning. We learned from Dan and Future Anything team that this is, the basis that they use for working. But for example, in the Spanish context, it is quite new to do project-based learning, because the learning can be a bit more, let's say, traditional there. Also, the human-centered design, a framework that puts really people at the center in creating solutions or products or services. If you're talking about entrepreneurship, that's also quite new in some contexts. While at the same time, for example, universal design for learning, which is a methodology focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, was new to some of the other partners. While bringing this all together, it requires a bit of time to see how it all fits together. But these are the main three methodologies we used for formulating basically a number of fundamental principles that we think are very important if you want to build activities or a full program focused on social entrepreneurship or impact-driven entrepreneurship for young people. We called it for children. It's also a language thing. I know that some of the partners didn't really like the word children. Young people might have been better. Same thing around terminology is about competencies or skills or I think capabilities is what you are used to, Dan, and the team in Future Anything. You need a little bit of time to bring it together internationally, and at the same time you're learning already, and hopefully that. So I recommend working internationally for for all of you to get a bit of perspective on your own position here. But we managed to find the center. You see the IDEEC logo in the center of these three methodologies now.
Yeah, so certainly around the IDEEC project sat at the intersection of those three methodologies. Can you talk to us a little bit more about some of the frameworks that were drawn from? So inner development goals, EntreComp and GreenComp for our audience joining us?
Yeah, so we spent quite a bit of time developing an IDEEC framework, which we'll present to you in a minute. But the basis for that was formed by three frameworks that already exist, because why reinvent the wheel? And two of those are based on large-scale surveys around Europe. EntreComp is a framework of entrepreneurial competencies, not specifically meant for children or young people, but in general, it consists of 15 competencies across three domains. GreenComp is a framework that is about skills for sustainability, basically, or competencies for sustainability. This is also quite an extensive framework. And then more in a general sense, we used a soft skills framework. And we were inspired by the inner development goals. So this is well, one could also call it a framework inspired by the sustainable development goals, but then more focusing on the inner development you need to go through in order to actually bring about change with regard to the sustainable development goals. We put these frameworks in the mix. We did surveys among educators, among entrepreneurs, asking them which ones fitted together, which ones were most important, and then build our own framework, basically.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. And I know Nick's in the background giving some links to those frameworks, which are really fascinating to check out. So I'd highly recommend doing that. So essentially, the project drew from these frameworks, had the three main methodologies, and then it also was, I guess, guided by four fundamental principles that diversity, equity, and inclusion was a key component. That content was competence-based, which we'll talk about in a moment. That learning was student-centered and student-led, and that the teacher was acting as the facilitator. So certainly those four fundamental principles and three main methodologies led to the development of this competence framework over three phases. So can you talk to this, Maarten, and how this came together?
Yeah. So this actually came together during a full week of the whole project team being together in Amsterdam, and that really helped because we could really go into depth, bringing together all the results from the surveys, etc. But then also really detailed thinking about what fits where, how to order this, etc. So I think the most important thing is here that if you want to build a program for impact-driven entrepreneurship education, social entrepreneurship education, there are three main phases in which you need to provide educational content, so to say. So the first phase is challenge framing. Where you pick the challenge you are going to work on and frame it, so make it smaller to actually be able to do some work around it. Then in the second phase, there's the solutions experimenting. There you start building solutions for the challenge you have framed in the first phase. And in the third and final phase, you are going to make impact, because social entrepreneurship is about making impact and making the best net positive impact that you can, basically. And underlying these three phases are 9 competencies. What we basically did was first decide on the 9 competencies that need to be addressed in the program on social entrepreneurship, and then linking them to the phases. So you see, for example, that vision is the third competency. It is placed in phase 1 of challenge framing, which does not mean that it is irrelevant in phases 2 or 3, but we decided that it is most relevant in phase 1. So in the first phase, you need to be aware of yourself. Self-awareness and efficacy is a key competency there. Of course, ethical and sustainable thinking also forms the basis of for a social entrepreneurship project. And then you need to have vision. Where are you going? In the second phase, you start to experiment with solutions, and of course, you need creativity to do so. You need to work together as a team, and you need to be a critical thinker. So you need to evaluate well what is working, what is not working. You need to iterate to find the best possible solution. And then in the phase of impact making, you need to be able to mobilize others, and for that you need to organize well. And of course, this is also already relevant in the other phases, but especially when you're making impact, you need to be able to cope with the uncertainty around you, and need to be able to manage risks, basically. One thing you cannot really see in this framework here is that, of course, you need to go back at certain points to different to phases before. So maybe you find out that that you need to go back to reframe your challenge. Once you have been experimenting, maybe when you want to start making impact, you see that it's not working and you need to experiment a bit more. So there's also elements of feedback loops and needing to adapt, basically.
Yeah, I think our audience who work with us here in Australia would see some similarities in those competencies that we refer to generally as capabilities. And certainly that process of young people taking something that they really care about, ideating some solutions, and then looking for impact or sharing that impact. So, Maarten, what was the next step? So the competency framework was put together. Where did the project go from there?
Yeah, so it's really nice to have a competence framework, but that doesn't really help you one-on-one in the classroom when you're doing activities with your learners. So we started building a really large set of activities. I think we have about 60 now. I'm not exactly sure about the number, across the different phases, addressing all of the competencies. And we have divided them in activities for the group of 9 to 12-year-olds, what is in the Netherlands upper primary education, and the 12 to 15-year-olds, what is for us lower secondary education. And then across the different phases, across the different competencies, and we spend a lot of time in making a nice framework for these activities, so that there you can easily see what it does, how long it takes, what you need to do to prepare to be able to do it. And all of the partners brought in these activities, and we tested them in classrooms, improved them, and now we have basically a pack of them ready. Going along with that is an element of impact measurement. So we talked a little bit about the origin of the project. Their impact measurement was important. So we want to include an element of simple impact measurements that you as an educator can do with your students, but also in the wider audience around. To see what difference these activities, these programs actually make. So while we have the set of activities basically finished by now, this impact measurement part is still in the final stages of development, but we want to make it a sort of menu to pick from. Where you start measuring, a T0, I say as a researcher, already before your program, and then during the different phases, you can, if you want to, measure different elements. You can also choose to focus just on, the effects of for your learners, but you can also. We provide you with some tools to measure the impact you make in the wider community.
And just I can give our audience a bit of a look at what the first page of some of these toolkit activities look like. Certainly some detail around the competence and the learning objectives, some of the preparation, the context, and then some detailed information around how to run those activities. So as Maarten has said, there's a toolkit for 9 to 12 and a toolkit for 12 to 15 that are quite detailed and will be available from the IDEEC website. So Maarten, I guess where to from here? So we're gearing towards the end of the project. What's next?
Well, keeping with our own framework, we're going to be in the phase of impact making. And of course, sharing finishing what we've been doing, sharing what we've been doing, learning from the reactions we get from all of you. So please react. And one element that we also find very important, and which is still in development, and I know that our colleague Sylvia is also in the audience here. And she's really the key person in developing what we call a policy brief, which is going to be a document that inspires policymakers in educational and/or economic policy to support these kinds of programs. And of course, it is very dependable on the context, what you can do as a policymaker, but we will try to convince you that this, supporting this kind of education is very helpful for creating a better future for the area that you're responsible for as a policymaker. And apart from that, of course, we want to build further connections to other players in this domain, or even better, outside of this domain, to get this type of education into classrooms around the globe, basically.
Yeah, thank you, Maarten. One of the key things that all of the stakeholders are looking at the moment is how can we help to disseminate this information. It was super exciting that Social Enterprise Academy in Scotland hosted an international global classroom where lots of different schools from around Europe jumped on to an online meeting, shared, got to know each other, and then all went off and completed one of the toolkit activities in their own setting, and then came back together to share that learning, which was a really cool experience. And there's another global classroom being planned for older age groups, I believe. Maarten, there's dissemination events happening in Scotland in June this year. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that will be very cool, I think. So our Scottish partner is called Social Enterprise Academy, and they run a lot of programs in schools across Scotland. They also have a kind of competition between schools, and the final event of our project will coincide with their I think you call it grand final. I think they have another term, but it doesn't really matter. It will be a large room with a lot of kids and teachers, and also some parents and some policymakers, etc., in the room. We will talk a little bit about IDEEC with everyone involved, but most of all, we will be doing stuff. So we're doing some of the activities, explaining a little bit more about the impact measurement, and also, live try to talk to policymakers and inspire them to adopt this kind of education. So really looking forward to that. But that will happen in June. But before that, around the different countries involved in the project, there will also be a set of local events, basically, or regional or national events, where people are brought together within the specific country context. And there maybe you can go a little bit more in depth, for example, to inspire policymakers, because you know the setting well. Apart from that, we will be presenting at conferences. We'll be all over the place in the coming months.
Yeah, thank you. I know there's some interest from the chat around being able to dig deeper into what the toolkit looks like. It is in its final stages of development, and having some of that impact and measurement being included into what the toolkit looks like. So I would recommend that the team, if you're interested, keep an eye on IDEEC.eu. That is the website that is constantly being added to through this stage of the project. There's further information and some videos and some more detail around the frameworks and the methodologies and principles that you saw today, there is a chance to go to the newsletter and contact section and register for any further information that can be shared. So IDEEC.eu is the website, and we'll keep you updated around when that toolkit is fully accessible. We're super excited for what's going to happen around dissemination in June. It's been 3 years nearly and a long project, and it's coming towards the end. Maarten, I guess what I'd love to ask you as we kind of gear up, and I'm keeping an eye on the chat for questions, so keep throwing them through if you're interested. Maarten, if you had some advice for a leader or a classroom teacher that was watching today, what's one action or takeaway that you think teachers and leaders can do to implement more of this work in their school setting?
Yeah, that's a crucial question. And basically, my take on this is start small, but start. So, and depending on your role, of course, there's different things you can do. As a policymaker, you can, have a pilot project on this somewhere in a school. As an educator, you can, in a little bit of free time, experiment with one or two or three of the activities that are there. But also have faith in your students. They come up with great solutions. That's also what I see in higher education, but when I teach myself, but also when we visit schools, for example, with Fawaka in Amsterdam, young people have great solutions, and you need to sometimes sit on your hands a little bit and wait for them to emerge. But they definitely will emerge, and these can be great solutions for the challenges we're facing.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Maarten. I'd also love to know, just as we kind of wrap up, what's next for you? This is only one, I guess, key project that's in your portfolio. What else have you got going on? What else is in the future?
Well, lots of things. So we're building more network around this in Europe. And within the Netherlands, there's now a movement towards bringing the different levels of education in social entrepreneurship together and linking them in a better way, which is very hard to do because of the different rules, etc. It's transitioning. I'm sure you know all about it, but we take a bottom-up approach. So start with the people that want to do something to make a bit of a difference and get positive energy of small projects, building this link, and then bringing these examples to the table to inspire more people to do so. And apart from that, I'm also just continuing teaching. I'm now teaching in a master program called a Master of Economic Transformation, bringing a lot of social entrepreneurship content into there. I really like doing that, and seeing the students, as I said, come up with great ideas.
I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second and ask, what's on your reading bookshelf at the moment? Do you have something that you'd recommend around a book, a podcast, something for our audience?
There's a large number of things, but I've been reading in Dutch, to be honest, so I need to think of translating this title back. There was one book. Oh, damn it! It's called the Ministry of the Future, I think. And that was really
So, what I might do, Maarten, is I'm going to get you to flick it to me so I can add it to our summary email that's going to go out the recording, and we'll be able to get the title for everybody. Any other book on the shelf? Oh, Nick may have found it there. The
The
Ministry for
Ministry
the
for the
Future.
Future. Yeah, Kim
Awesome. There we
Stanley
go.
Robinson. That's the one. It is a lot of reading, but it is very inspiring. It's about the future, basically, what the future looks like. And it starts a bit depressing. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that in the current political climate. But it will get, very, it's more positive towards the end. So it is really an inspiring read, I think.
Awesome. Well, wow, 40 minutes just flew by, Maarten. Look, I really wanted to say thank you for being up early in the Netherlands and being here for this conversation. I always love chatting and talking with you, and hearing your background and your passion for this work. So really, really would like to say thank you. To those of you who have joined us, I hope you get some time to dig into some of those frameworks and have a little bit of a look at the project. Certainly keep an eye on IDEEC.eu. We're back in March for another live learning, this time with the topic of AI for good, easing teacher workload. So stay tuned for that and watch out for the information and the registration links. We're going to have a panel of 3 different people from across 3 different contexts talking about how we can use AI to improve the work that we do. But ultimately, that's all we've got time for today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Maarten for being with us. I wish you all the very best. Have a wonderful evening or morning, wherever you are in the world, and take care. We'll see you next time.